Hello, and welcome to Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And today we're going to be joined by Sam Parkinson, an audiovisual technician who's been part of the theatre industry for the past few decades, as well as working at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and is now a part-time Twitch streamer under the name Parkie34. Firstly, Sam, thank you very much for joining us today. So usually we have this first opening section talking about our guest and delving into their history and how they became to be part of the industry. So would you mind us regaling us with how that started?
I would actually love to. Okay, so when I was young, I went through the struggles when you're a kid of trying to fit in somewhere straight away, and I'm not academic in any regards. As much as I might be able to speak very well, according to my partner, I speak very well.
I'd agree.
Thanks. It's I gravitated towards theatre and performing, and through the years and through my school, luckily my high school when I was a kid were an arts college. So having that jump through doing performing, and then I was really started to love everything that was happening around me as well, and I got really engaged with the technical aspects of performance and film and theatre and things like that. It's major for me to have that sort of perspective outside of the stage as well, and I really got into it. So I then pursued it through university and through college, and as any thespian will tell you, it's hard going and it's extremely oversubscribed industry. Yeah. So you've got to do a lot of things for free, you've got to sell your soul, and you've really got to make a path for yourself, whatever sort of profession you do choose to go down in the industry. Yeah. So I saddled the performance side and went straight to the technical side, because I was like, if I can really hone my skills here and really carve out a good lane for myself, the world will be your oyster. And as a naive early 20s kid at that time, I was like, yeah, let's invest all in this. And I did, and it paid off in the end. I went and worked at the Edinburgh International Arts Festival, which is known as the Edinburgh Comedy Festival, to those who don't know. And I've done 7 years straight at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival working technical. Wow. And also running theatre spaces as well with one company mainly, and also taking my own shows up there as well. So I've pretty much, again, sold my soul to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and to all the creatives out there as well. And it was that then network, as you do in any sort of industry when it comes to creativeness. You network with people, you find one person, you start talking, I'll put your name down. And that then is a seed you plant somewhere, wherever it goes, and it will end up growing. And then I ended up coming back home. That seed grew at home, and then I ended up being a audio visual technician in my city of Manchester, where I am currently working at corporate events, doing anything from high-end birthday parties to big charity events and things like that. We do a lot of corporates, very different to theatre, so it's a lot of people call you up and say, I want to do a party, I'm a footballer, I have X amount of budget, can you do it? And we'll go, yes, 100%. Yeah. So it's not so much theatre nowadays, but a lot still creative and lots of budget. So I've gone from having this amount of budget, which is by my fingers that you can't see, is tiny, to having huge amounts of budget of the length of my arm and production values out the window. So it takes work, but that's pretty much where I am now. Apart from sitting at home while the industry slowly dies because of COVID. Yeah. But
I know, yeah. Well, this industry has been particularly hard hit, hasn't it? But I was going to ask you before we move on to that morbid subject. Do you still actually like the idea of treading the boards yourself? Because I get the impression there that you actually done a little bit of acting early on, a bit of singing and performing. Is that right?
Yeah, I loved performing. Performing and directing was something I really had a passion for, and I did lots of directing pantos. When I was at college, we used to do a panto voluntarily, and I used to be the one who used to direct it because no one else really wanted to. And I was like, right, okay, nobody else wants to do it, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And that really set me off into the directing, editing scripts, screenplays, thinking about how certain things, be it acting or technical, affect other things in shows and performing. It kind of took a back seat purely because I give credit to anybody who can direct a film, edit, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, be in the song and all that. So I credit anybody who can do that, because that's, unless you're on your own doing it all by yourself, that's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So as soon as I moved to looking at directing and screenplaying and then into technical, I was like, well, the acting, I'll leave that to all the pretty people on screen. I will make you look and sound as pretty as I can physically, and I will do my best to do so.
It sounds like to you it was about the big picture rather than the sort of look at me, I am the star. It was more about you liked every department and you liked the way that they worked in harmony. Is that about right?
I hate blowing my own trumpet. I wasn't a bad actor. What I remember most of all from college, especially when I was a kid, is my head of department leaving, and they wrote me a postcard saying, never sell yourself short. Acting is always there, and it will always be there for you, but make sure you still carve your path in the industry, which I did do, and, still getting calls to this day and is big credit. But I used to love performing. I think my favourite role that I ever did was in Oedipus Rex, which is the famous play where, the protagonist marries his mother and then cuts his own eyeballs out with a spoon, pretty much.
So it's comedy. Yeah.
Did you play the T-Rex in that?
I did not. No, I played a guy called the Sphinx who told him what I was. I'm trying to attribute that role to a film role. It was very much like that sort of who played. Was it when the Queen in Shakespeare in Love? This is bad. I'm on a film podcast. I've forgotten her name. Judi Dench. Judi Dench was supporting actress for playing the Queen in Shakespeare in Love, didn't she?
Yeah.
And that was what the Sphinx was. That was a role I did, and I like to think that I won the best supporting role purely for having about 10 seconds of dialogue. Essentially, what I was in that.
I see. So you came in at the end and stole the thing, basically.
Essentially,
it was certainly the most flamboyant role in the thing.
Put it this way: I went out with an A-star grade at GCSE, and nobody else in my cast got even close to that grade. So I was well happy with that.
That's why it's really interesting to me. It's quite fascinating to me that you obviously you obviously enjoyed acting loads, and you really put yourself there. But like from that point, when does it start to be like I just want to do the technical, I just want to do the sound, or I just want to do the lights? Because it's kind of, I wouldn't say a step down in terms of career. I just mean it's kind of a step away from the limelight. You know what I mean? So like when did that kind of come in? Like when did you start to think I just want to do the technical?
I'm a busybody, I think. It's never good when you're at the level you're at, especially in the industry, to be so specialist. Because guaranteed, if you are specialising in one thing, there's going to be somebody else who specialises in that exact same thing. And then you're competing. If you are specialising in that thing, and then that other person is just as good, and then you can come out and say, well, I also specialise in this. What is it? Because people say you're a jack of all trades, master of none, but master of one isn't as good as being good at everything, essentially.
Yeah. I think that's the general.
This is general gist. I'm sure someone will be Googling it right now going, I know what it is, Parkie, I know what it is.
Whenever I use the phrase, which I use quite often, I never use it in a negative sense. You know what I mean? I just think it's that thing of where you're not narrow-minded, you can sort of,
multifaceted.
You're a multifaceted person.
Yeah.
There we go.
And at the end of the day, if you're in this industry, you can't be narrow-minded. You've got to have aspects of absolutely everything that's going on. Be it directing, be it acting, you've got to be so self-aware. And if you're not, then that's how you fail.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about, the first time you went to like Edinburgh, because I mean that must have felt pretty special, right? To do that, and how you got invited, or was that purely off your own steam, or did you join a company, or how did that come about?
Well, when I was at university, I went to drama school, but I did stage management, so I went into being a stage manager for a drama school, very small school, Birmingham School of Acting. So it was only a university school of about 300 people, maybe less. It's like a primary school size. So you had the actors, you had the community applied theatre course, and then you had the stage managers, as well as a few people who did masters from America and things like that. But every year you'd have a catalogue of shows that you put on in the tail end of the summer, the winter, and then the spring shows. And you'd have a different role every single time. So I was stage manager for I was deputy stage manager, so I'd be show caller, is what it's known as, for a show called Therese Khan, that was in Birmingham. And the director was, God rest his soul, Jasper Nathan, the best director I've ever worked with. That guy was an absolute visionary, and he worked with youth theatre, and I think he worked with Taron Egerton, I think.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he taught him when he was a youth, and he was an absolute visionary. Yeah. And, well, we've got Taron Egerton now, you know? So I like to think that I worked very closely with somebody who built up an absolute powerhouse as I look at him. I absolutely love Taron Egerton. Yeah. So, God rest his soul, though, he passed away 2 years ago. Unfortunately, we've lost a soul there. But either way, I was deputy stage manager, so I was show caller for that performance. And the lighting designer for the show said, I like the cut of your Jim. I like your cut, G, whatever they say now in Gen Z. And he said, in the summer, I work in Edinburgh and I am head of production for this company who have a few spaces up in Edinburgh who do about 200 shows across the Fringe. Would you like to come up and work for us? And this was another one where you sell your soul. You don't earn any money. It's all for the joy and the love and creating connections. So I was like, hi, Mum, can you pay for my train ticket? Can I have a few £100, please? And you go and you share an apartment in Edinburgh with a few people, and you're just people who want to get into the industry and, you know, meet actors and performers and things like that and have a good time as I was working. So I was invited, yes, and then I was given an immediate role. As much as other people apply for the experience as well, I was approached during a show. So, and then it was a rolling. As soon as I was there for the entire year, I remember getting off the train. I had no idea where I was going, and this was before the days when Google Maps on smartphones were really a thing. And I was like, I have no idea where I'm going. I don't know where this is. And Edinburgh, if you've ever been, is a gorgeous city, but it's like layers upon layers of buildings.
It's a bit of a labyrinth, isn't it?
No idea where you're going.
Labyrinth. Yeah. And I love that when you come out of Waverley and you turn around and you see the castle for the first time, and those views are just that you never forget it, do you?
Oh yeah, you never forget it, but you'll never even see it again if you're first time. You get lost. I remember walking, and I was walking for about 3 hours, and I finally got into my theatre where I was going to be working. And it was a makeshift theatre, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Sam. I'm here to see Richard." And then there's a woman was like, "Oh yeah, he's not here at the moment, but here's the key to your apartment. It's over there, and it's at this address." And I ended up wandering around for 3 hours, having no idea where I was going. And then you sort of settle in for a while, and you did some great shows. I did the Blues Brothers, Attack the Blues Brothers, and the Rat Pack, and that's where you meet people in the industry, and that's kind of where it came from.
Did you have like pinch me moments when you're there, especially for the first like couple of times, like where you either meet someone that you love, or I always thought that seeing these people sort of slumming it in Edinburgh and really doing these tiny shows, you must see them at their worst sometimes, in terms of stressed out performers. And I mean, is there any horror stories you could tell us about celebrities acting like twats?
He's going straight for the gossip.
He's asking me to out people.
How dare you?
Ooh, outing. Stuart Lee. Do you know who Stuart Lee is?
I love
comedian.
Yeah, I've seen him loads of times. Yeah.
He came and saw a show which in that year, which was about the jazz musician Coltrane.
Yeah,
because he's a big jazz fan, and he was nice enough, but he didn't want to know you. He was there for one show, and that was it. So it was like, okay. Hi, I really like your stuff. You're famous. It's the first proper famous person. You're sort of kind of tearing the tickets and sitting them down. You have a little bit of conversation, and they don't care. They come to the show. They don't care about anything else.
It's all business.
And it's just like, okay, all right, okay, Mr. Lee, here's your seat. Bye.
He's
I'm
never
gonna go
really
and do my thing then.
Yeah, he's never really come across as like a big cuddly teddy bear or anything like that.
Oh no.
So.
The other ones are. What was the talk panel show? It's not on anymore, or it might be on anymore, but I don't have a TV that's really connected to broadcast telly anymore. It's not News of the World. Is it News of the World?
Have I got news for you?
Have I got news for you?
Have I got news for you? Yes. I'm so sorry. I've got my head full of everything else. I've totally forgot. Have I got news for you? Yeah, Ian Hislop.
Yeah, the
perfect.
bald guy.
That was it. That was the guy. And I thought he was dead short in I thought he was really short. And then as soon as I saw him, he's the same height as me, which is just a bit short. He's about 5'10".
Right.
That is surprising.
And I saw him, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Hislop, you look a lot taller in real life." And he took it on the chin.
Good.
And he went to see the Oxford Gargoyles, who are an a cappella school band.
Okay.
And they're very famous, apparently, even though they weren't very nice people.
Oh, no.
But he went to see them, and he was tall. And I was like, wow, bit weird. Might have been slightly by saying that's like you were short.
I know exactly what you mean though. Like when you see him, and like you assume he's probably about 4'5".
Yeah, you assume he's like 5'2".
Yeah,
he's not. Yeah. He's very tall. I was like, oh, you're a lot taller than I think you are. I don't know if there's any more gossip I can really give.
So Stuart Lee,
this
Rude,
is good because it sounds like you've you've not had a terrible time. Then it sounds like your idols and maybe people that you respect have not been. Doesn't sound too shocking. Like you've had some pretty decent experiences, really.
Well, when you're in Edinburgh at that time of year, you kind of bump into absolutely everybody. The guy who plays Joffrey, again, names escape me. This is my dyslexic mind just going. I see images and everything just everything just goes.
Jack
yes,
something.
he came into my venue the second year as in Edinburgh that I ran, and with the girl who plays Jon Snow's love interest.
Yeah.
The ginger actress.
Yeah.
She died. Spoilers.
Not the actress, the character.
Not the actress. The character died. And they came in. They took a brochure. They said hi. They were very pleasant. Simon Amstell met him at a bus stop during the Edinburgh Fringe. Stephen K. Amos.
Yeah.
He when he got drunk, he got quite leery, quite flirtatious.
I can imagine him doing.
And there you go. Rod Gilbert. He's moody. I met Rod Gilbert.
Oh, really?
It was the last Fringe. So pre-COVID, the last Fringe. It was 2019. Now I have to think of the year. It's been that long.
I know.
2019. I was in the Underbelly, which is in George's Square, and just post finishing show with the show I was working with at the time for a comedian called Gabby Killick, Girlfriend from Hell, plug. And we sat in the bar, and Rod Gilbert came in on his lonesome with a pint. And sat down and started drinking his pint. I thought, this is Rod Gilbert on his own. So I went over and said hi to him. I was like, Rod Gilbert? And he's there like, yeah. I was like,
what do you want?
Yeah, I was like, nice to meet you. And he's like, yeah. I was like,
okay,
you've had a bad show. You've had a bad show. I'll leave you to your pint. All right, bye. And he sat there, drank his pint, looked around, scowled and left. I was like, he's had a bad show, so I'll leave him to it. And that's what you kind of get with Edinburgh. There's highs, there's lows, and you meet all walks of life there. So yeah, there's not much gossip other than just bumping into people, I guess.
I'm glad though. I'm really glad. It sounds like obviously you've seen some people like maybe not at the best, but like it sounds like you've had a pretty positive experience with it. And is it a place that you could ever see yourself moving to? Because I know a lot of people like fall in love with it when they go, and my mum is Scottish, so and she's from Fife, so just north of Edinburgh, and so I spent a lot of time there as a kid, and I just adore it. I just thought I could see myself possibly like retiring there or something.
So moving on from like Edinburgh and things, when it comes to what we call real world, because Edinburgh's quite a bubble. When you're at a festival like that where it's all contained in one city, and it is Edinburgh's most prolific and biggest event of the year every year, and international, Korea, China, Russia, everyone's in one city at once.
Wow.
The actual population, I think the population almost increases by 2/3. Over the summer. So when you think about it that way, Edinburgh's also a massive city, and it's not exactly, expandable.
No.
So when it increases by 2/3, it becomes this huge bubble of creatives, and you soon realise that it is just a bubble.
Yeah.
And then when you go back into the real world, you meet real people again and real experiences. So when it comes to things like still being in theatre outside of Fringe, my best point about theatre outside of Fringe was still working with celebrities essentially, but also having the best experiences with them. So I did a show in university. I was invited to come and work at the Birmingham Repertory Theatre with Ruth Morgan, who is the head of stage management there.
Oh, wow.
And her husband is head of wigs. And they're a great combo. Like, it's a great theatre. It is a power couple, especially in that theatre.
Yeah.
And we had at the time a show coming in from the Royal Shakespeare Company, which was A Life of Galileo, and the lead role was Emperor Palpatine himself.
Oh, wow. Ian
McDermott. So Ian McDermott. And so I was in rehearsal rooms with Ian McDermott, and my main role there was assistant stage manager, just for while I was in Birmingham. But because they went on tour after that, so they had what's called acting ASMs. So you had all the what you call the extra actors, like the lower sort of background actors. They'd be bringing props on and off and things like that. And I was teaching them and helping them move props around and say, it's best to put this here for this reason and do this for this reason. And I did work with Ian closely for a few days, mostly on his chair. The guy is honestly, I hope every actor who we hold up is like him. He has his, as every person who has like paved their way in through the acting industry, deserves respect and deserves the best of what they've sowed. He stayed in Brindley Place, which is a very high level place in Birmingham. It's essentially like Pall Mall, like Park Lane in Birmingham,
right?
Brindley Place, and he stayed there. He had a flat there, but it was the best thing was like, my chair doesn't feel very secure. Can you help me work out how to sit in this chair properly? I thought it was a bit weird, but we worked together so he could do his blocking properly because he's an old guy. So I used to try and make his if his shoes and his clothing made him uncomfortable. I was his go. He's like, Sam, can you please help me with this? So he said, I'm not feeling great in this. Can you please take this to that department and make sure they give it back to you, and then I can give it back. Then you can give it back to me. So I was like his go-between for a couple of days. That was really interesting.
You were the Emperor's gopher.
So nice.
That's fucking great.
Yeah, I was the Emperor's gopher. But he then did say, make sure when you go for a drink after work, go to this pub and make sure you put it on my tab. And I did, and he paid it off.
Oh, that's so nice.
Champagne
on Palpatine, thank you.
Champagne on Palpatine. Yeah, it's like, Palpatine's tab, please. And it was great.
That's just so good to know.
What was also great is my stepdad is a massive Star Wars fan, so I got them obviously free tickets, and then I got them into backstage and also meeting him as well.
That must have been mind-blowing.
My stepdad is a massive Star Wars fan, so that was an absolute joy for him. And I was like, there you go. I've been working with this guy for a while. It's fine. We'll go to the pub and have one on his tab, and he can meet him. He was there like, oh my god, you work with this guy? I was like, yeah.
Starstruck, I imagine.
Did he ever do the voice, or did you ever do the voice to him?
He did the voice in the show. He did the voice in the show for a laugh because Galileo was an astronomer, and there is a line where it's like, look at the dark side of the moon.
No way.
So he's like, look at the dark side. And everyone in the theatre was like, Loki laugh. So that was, and he came off to me. He came off my side of the stage at that point. He looked at me and just had this biggest grin on his face. I was like, you knew you were impressed. Yeah, you knew there was some Star Wars fans in there tonight. You knew it. And he was a really nice guy. Really nice guy.
Sorry to interrupt, but was there ever a moment where maybe you were a bit hesitant to do something and then they just went, do it? do it.
No, he had that a lot. He had that a lot during rehearsals, so I kind of dropped that one off. There's lots of times where you can get away with that sort of thing, but I don't want. It was my first proper celebrity that I worked with, so I really didn't want to push my luck.
I'd just be like, I don't know if you've seen it in Father Ted, but when Richard Wilson from One Foot in the Grave turns up on the island and he says, I'm going to go up to him and say, I don't believe it. I bet no one has ever done that before.
Do you know what he'd love?
Exactly.
No one ever does it to him. Yeah.
No, you're right, and it was. It's just, but then again, when you're working with anybody of that caliber in regards to whatever industry they're in, be it music or be it acting, they've heard it all before. But sometimes there is hearing it too many times, and it was the same. We've worked with Craig David before in corporate, so this is more recent work. Doing technical gigs for Craig David, he was. Not for his tour, but he was a guy who came in and did some shows for a brand. I'm not going to say the brand because it's white label, but he came and did some shows for them as a private gig.
Wow!
And he's heard the time. Can you fill me in Oh, can I get that on a rewind all the time? And he came up to us all. He literally said, "Hi, I'm Craig," and I was like, "Oh, nice to meet Craig. I'm Sam." And he was like, "I've heard it all before. You know, it's fine." And I was like, his career, he's had nothing but "Can you fill me in? Can I get a rewind? Artful Dodge," all that sort of stuff. And it's just like, they've heard it all before. And once you kind of get them bits out of the way, they then break down into real people. And that was great experience.
It must be so hard just anytime you say any day of the week. He'd just be like, yeah, okay.
It's when you say it in the tone. It's like, Monday.
You just like slip into it.
Go for a drink, Craig. We go for a drink on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
Go for a drink on Tuesday.
It's like, don't ask him today. Just ask him. Just wait till tomorrow. Just ask him tomorrow.
He was a very... like anybody has, they have their quirks. And he had his quirks as well. So he kind of like left all at the door. He let everyone have their jokes for about an hour. And then he was like, right, down to work now.
Well, that's great, though. What a great attitude, because it's just kind of like, I know this is a thing. I can live with it. It's fine. Let's just get it done, and then we can move on and just be like dudes. Yeah.
It's his brand, isn't it?
Did he mention how he was part of the most recent Olympics? Because did you know that he went as part of the Olympic team? He was part of the archery. He was the bow selector.
Was he? Oh right, you literally dropped me then. Oh no, you can't do this. I was there like, when did I work with Craig David last? What year was it? Was the Olympics in that year? I can't remember. I literally fell for that.
I had you on the end of a
fishing
line. So the film you decided to talk about today, Sam, is Edgar Wright's car chase epic Baby Driver. I'm glad, personally, that we're finally able to talk about this amazing director, because it's his first appearance on our show. But why, may I ask, this film in particular?
Well, if we're allowed to, before we really push on to the actual feature itself, can we please step back and please marvel at the fact that Edgar Wright is probably one of the, if not most prolific, British directors.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Of all time.
I champion him any moment I can.
Yeah, I knew Mike would be so happy when he found out what your pick of movie was.
When it comes to Edgar Wright, I have him up there because what's funny is, like, if you think British directors, you think of Danny Boyle, but I hold Edgar Wright above him.
Yeah.
In all regards, and it's also funny the fact that Alfred Hitchcock was born in London, so technically Alfred Hitchcock is British.
Yeah.
And I hold Edgar Wright and Alfred Hitchcock as like two amazing directors, and people you can laugh, but it's the point where you will not look on any uni student's DVD shelf and not see at least one, if not all, of Edgar Wright's back catalogue.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
and
that's
and
true.
People won't even know. You've got Scott Pilgrim, you've got the Cornetto trilogy,
even the Space TV show.
Spaced, exactly. Yeah. Our generation is built on Edgar Wright. It's from films of British TV and cinema.
I'd say he's hot praises.
He is amazing. And when it comes to Baby Driver, it was a proper passion project for him. He wanted to do this film for years and years and years, so much so that he actually directed a music video. I forgot what the actual band was, but
it was Mint Royale was the band, and the Blue Song, I believe. That I only discovered that because of I was obsessed with the Mighty Boosh back when I was in like the mid noughties, and when I found out that Noel Fielding and Julian Barrett were in a music video alongside Nick Frost and Michael Smiley. I was all over that. I loved that song. Played it incessantly one summer. It's actually in Baby Driver. The music video is on the TV.
The music video is in Baby Driver.
You see it on the TV.
That's a nice little Easter egg, isn't it?
There's so many Easter eggs in this film. We could literally make an entire 3 podcasts on the Easter eggs in this film.
I did a rewatch last night for this, and the scene where Baby goes to does the coffee run in the morning, which is obviously really super reminiscent of the Shaun of the Dead Cornetto run. But I just remember looking at the graffiti on the wall, and obviously some of it is just the lyrics from the song. But I remember thinking, Mike and Sam are going to tell me what's in that graffiti, because there's going to be so much shit in there. Because I'm a huge George Romero fan, so obviously I've studied Shaun of the Dead pretty closely. Bob's Pizza and all the sort of the Easter eggs there. Yeah. So is there anything you guys can tell me about that intro scene that's particularly Eastery?
Well, the first opening scene where you see when it's like Baby Driver and it goes duh duh duh, and people usually think House of Pain's coming next, and it really doesn't.
It got me.
It is when it looks up through the building where Baby lives. It's there's 2 the middle lines of a road. So it's a road going up the building, which immediately signifies the start of the path that baby's going on. And as soon as you notice that, as soon as you're an Edgar Wright fan, you sort of see those sort of things anyway. It's like, right, I'm in for a journey here. And as it progresses through, you are completely correct. As someone who's such a passionate person about theatre like myself, you could see this being directed on a stage. Like this, as much as it is, Steadicam all the way through, and it's a master of a shot. I absolutely love it. One whole take all the way through. Yeah. It's gorgeous. I think this film only won awards pretty much for editing and nothing else.
Yeah.
And it deserves
it. Not for cinematography?
It won more awards for editing, I think.
If that's the case, it's pretty criminal, isn't it? Because like you say, that opening shot alone is masterful. Oh
yeah, it's gorgeous. But the progression of the shot's the best. Like as you said, the graffiti work, the song is prolific in his start of his journey, and you see the graffiti as you move along. It sort of mirrors, as it says. You see it in the background. It's very Shaun the Dead sort of style. It's very Edgar Wright. And then you'll notice a change. So what happens is he goes to the coffee shop. He goes into the coffee store and he pauses and he goes, yeah, and so it's like it gets in the flow of the music. When he walks into the coffee shop, you see the graffiti of blue waves and the heart at the start is black, and as soon as he sees the love interest move past, the heart turns red in the next actual scene. And like tiny things like that, as she has walked into his life immediately at that point, and his heart went from black to red, full heart.
Wow.
And it's like, right, not only is that a tiny detail, but it's a very significant one that there's a love interest. We all saw it anyway. You see the heart, you see everything else, but his heart was black before, and now it's completely full. As much as it didn't need that detail, it had it. And that's like, you can kind of get the shudders of like somebody like Edgar Wright thought of that.
Yeah.
That was the thing that he thought was like,
knowing that these fans and that these films are going to be rewatched and analysed and appreciated, and you're putting stuff in there for not the second viewing, not even the third viewing, but probably the 10th viewing or something that you may notice.
He is a director that's like that. He makes films for people to rewatch and notice things in different ways, like on different viewings. But like what I love this time, I'll be honest, not to go too much into the analysis like straight away, but I wasn't a big fan of this at first glance. I think I was expecting something similar to the Cornetto trilogy, and I went into it expecting that, and it's so totally different because it's a car chase like crime film, and it's not a comedy or anything like that. So I've went back and watched it this time. I appreciate it so much more now.
I was just going to say, Mike, just to interrupt you quickly, like this is only my second viewing. Last night I rewatched it for this podcast.
Same.
I may not have rewatched this film if it wasn't for you, Sam, because I liked it. It was fine. It didn't hit me that hard. I honestly, now only on the second viewing, I love it. I really, really love it. And as much as I'll explain my sort of history with Edgar Wright, but as much to say it might actually be like my second favourite of his movies.
Yeah,
now it's shot straight up the list for me. Thank you very much for recommending it. Sorry, Mike, carry on.
No, of course. But just the point that I noticed this time is when he's walking to the coffee shop, everything's going well for him. He's dancing, he's doing everything. But when he's walking back, things start going
to chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Like he notices the cop, he stumbles, he almost gets hit by the bike. And I just never picked up on the fact that like the further away he gets from Doc and the people in the building is his life's getting better. But then the further he comes back into it, the more trouble it gets. And I just never picked up on that before. And that's just a really just subtle theme that Edgar does so well I've just never noticed, and I just wanted to call attention to it and appreciate it.
I think the greatest thing about Edgar Wright, especially when he does these things, especially with like things like the Cornetto trilogy, famously, his own work, it's not based on Scott Pilgrim, which is obviously a comic or anything like that. His own work, he, like you said, Matt, he does make things that are rewatchable and that you can analyse for days and days to come. And I think that really speaks to getting to know people. That I like to think that Edgar Wright made films to get to know them Mm-hmm. And the more you watch Baby Driver, you'll get to know this film a bit more every time you watch it. Like when you have that conversation with somebody, you get to know this film a bit more. And you hit the nail on the head. That coffee shop scene and the first car chase scene, that bank robbery, it was directed through like this. It's not like we're going to establish every single character that has a point in this scene through bell bottoms.
Yeah.
Like it's and I think that was the one thing he always wanted to do is direct something to that song. It wasn't so much because he wanted to do this film. It was like, I want to do it to this song.
Yeah.
And then that's a good cement brick build everything foundation to an absolute brilliant opening scene.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people will watch that for the first time and then be like, great scene. Mm-hmm. And you'll watch it back going, hang on, that's on the beat and on the tempo of every single bit.
Yeah. It's like ballet, isn't it? It's just the choreography of it is insane. And I was
stunning.
I was listening to a podcast with him today, interviewed by Joe Dante, the director of The Howling and Gremlins and so on. And Edgar was doing his top 10 needle drop movies. For people who don't know, needle drop is basically when a movie, instead of using a orchestral soundtrack score, it uses popular music, single tracks. And stuff like that.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Goodfellas,
Pulp Fiction, being
Pulp
a
Fiction,
big thing, Reservoir Dogs for that matter, and obviously Baby Driver is probably that's probably why he was chosen for the list.
The ultimate needle drop.
Yeah. And he was just saying, he listed loads of, and it was clear that he had a love for that style, but also it's something that hasn't been around forever. It's relatively recent, it's probably in the late 70s, something like American Graffiti, which was like the first George Lucas, or one of the first George Lucas movies that did it. So it's quite a new, in terms of the history of cinema, it's quite a new thing. And he just absolutely nailed it with this. I mean, it not only... He was also talking, it was a really interesting fact that you guys will probably love, is that, the scene where, I can't remember exactly what scene it is, but it's when Baby gets into the car, he changes cars and he rewinds the track. And then they press play and then they go again.
Yes.
The DOP apparently said to him, "You're going to run out of music here in this scene." So Edgar literally said, he could rewind the track. And DOP went, right, okay, so we'll switch cars and then we'll rewind the track and then we've got enough. And it just stuff like, so it's almost like the music, the needle drop, score actually dictated the edit as well, which is just fucking, how unique is that? I don't think you can think of any other movie where that's the case.
He's such a conceptual, like a conceptualist, and he's got the idea of, I want to build a film around these songs. Yeah. And I want them to dictate the pace of things. I want them to dictate the editing. And I believe he's the closest thing that we've got to a visionary, in terms of he has an idea in his brain and he is going to get that on film as best he can.
And there's nothing in the shot that is accidental. It's all in there for a
it's all on purpose.
All on purpose, yeah. Nothing's wasted. There's no dead time. There's no shot that doesn't need to be there. It's edited within an inch of its life, and that's why I think film students love him, is because he's like the ultimate film student. He appreciates film so much, and he gives so much passion towards it that you can tell in every shot has been thought on and just worked on, and like I said, to an inch of its life.
There's a great that's what I love about Edgar Wright also, is the fact that as much as he could be seen as Edgar Wright's styling, you can look at Shaun of the Dead and you look at Baby Driver, two completely different films, but all of them filled with Edgar Wright isms, essentially. But it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's still the same, but it's different. And it's not the same as we're talking about Guy Ritchie the same. We're talking about this is a car chase film with action and terror and really hard-hitting emotion in it. And it's this guy also directed Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and did all that, and it's just did he? And you can watch this film and not even believe that Edgar Wright was even involved.
Yeah.
That's what I like. That's why I think that it is his best work.
Well, it just shows that a good director can turn his or her hand to anything. It's you're a director, that's all you're doing. It doesn't matter what the plot is or the genre. But also, like you were saying before, that about his style, filmmakers for the next 100 years will now be saying, I'm making an Edgar Wright-like movie, or I'm directing an Edgar Wright. This scene needs to be a bit more Edgar Wright. I think
He's
that
such an
like
auteur,
people say Hitchcockian, or they say Lynchian for David Lynch motifs. There'll be, I think, when they say, let's edit this scene, let's do it a little bit more like Edgar Wright. I think that, and when you become an ism, then that means that you've made a huge impact.
He's got such a distinctive style, you can't help but... Yeah, like he's an auteur. He has such a way of doing things that you can tell instantly that it's an Edgar Wright film. Yeah, sorry, Sam, I interrupted.
No, we can interrupt. I think we're going to interrupt each other a lot on this subject, to be honest. When it comes to Baby Driver specifically, though, the journey is great. And I think it becomes... What's great about it for me is that it starts off as a proper car journey. And that's a really big theme. And as I was saying, Edgar Wright's big on themes. And this one, mainly in Baby Driver, what really drew me to it was music, first of all. But also his colour themes are fantastic.
Definitely.
And when it comes to things like, you'll see it in the first scene, very subtly, that Baby is wearing a black vest, but he has a white shirt underneath, symbolising that he is dark, and he's with the dark side, essentially, but he's got the brightness underneath. And then when he's with anybody else, he's not wearing dark colours. Like, he's with Joe in his apartment, and that scene's also beautiful, by the way. Having a foster parent who is deaf and has to use sign language, but having that love of music is ironically beautiful, and that they can share that sort of connection. And it's like... It blows my mind how anybody thought of these sorts of things.
But when it comes to the speaker cone, to hear
for Deborah,
music, that was just such a wonderful moment, wasn't it? Where he touches the cone and just goes like that. It's just like nods his head.
Well, that comes full circle at the end. Spoilers if we're jumping on too far, but that comes full circle at the end when after Buddy shoots between his ears and blows his hearing. That comes full circle when he's in the car with Deborah and he has to use his hands to touch the speaker to hear his own mother.
There you go.
At the end, and great detail.
How great is that?
But it's something he probably learned from his stepfather, and these are the sorts of things I love in films like this, and it's. I get emotional when I watch Baby Driver, and that sounds really stupid.
Not at all.
I kind of, you think of emotion, especially on big levels, to do with anything that's this is going to be an emotional film. Big spoilers, it's going to be an emotional film. And Baby Driver, you look at it and go, nah, this is not going to be an emotional film at all. But when you watch it at least 2 times, maybe even 3 times, all through to now, I think I probably watched it about 7, 8 times. Very recently as well, so it's only been released in 2017.
Yeah.
But it's still emotional now, of that journey of a literal baby character, because he's called Baby because he is a baby.
Yeah.
He's
never grown up.
Lost his parents early.
Yeah.
And he had to. He's been a baby pretty much the entire film. He sees what he sees, and he takes what he sees and he applies it to the real world. Especially when it's he always quotes scenes from Monsters Inc. because he watched it on the telly.
Yeah, I love that.
2 scenes before, and
I also noticed that when he speaks to when she speaks to her colleague, and I think she says, I think his mum used to work here. I thought that was just a really nice little, he's kind of doing that Freudian thing of going for someone who's kind of like his mum, as well. I just thought that was really.
You are correct though. You are completely correct. If you put Deborah and his mum next to each other, they're similar characters.
Oh, they always wear yellow. They've got blonde hair. Yeah, I completely see that. What I love about, like you mentioned it before, with when Baby Driver's titles comes up and you think it's House of Pain, but it's not. It's the song that was originally sampled for House of Pain. But then the fact that Baby takes he records people speaking and uses the conversations to make his own music, but then he also watches things on TV and applies them to real life. He is like a sampler. He takes samples of real life and uses them. That's
foreboding, then, isn't it? That's foreshadowing, saying, because as much as as much as I love DJ Lethal and all of his attributes, I love also the way that this film is actually saying this isn't going to be House of Pain. This is going to be the original, material here. We're going to do something that's not going to, pander to populist stuff. It's going to be, you know what I mean? It's going to be its own original. We're going to use the original material here. So
isn't most of the soundtrack songs that have been sampled in more famous works?
Yes,
like their original things. Yeah,
very much so. Like they're extremely popular songs. I think as well. There's some like Easy Like Sunday Morning. Oh, yeah. That's a classic. And you have songs that everyone's going to be able to relate to at some point, especially when it comes to sampling. Yeah. It's like, I've heard this somewhere before. That's what it kind of triggers in your mind. That music's everywhere. The one thing I do like about it is that when you mentioned about recording and sampling his songs, one of my favourite things is to pause when he puts that "Is he slow?" Yeah. Like when he records that "Is he slow?" puts that in there. I'd love to pause at that moment and go through the names of what he's called everything. You could probably search every single phrase in that catalogue that Baby's made up, and it will be a reference to pop culture somewhere.
Yeah, but that's
like it's not just random.
Really that's like a 2-second shot. And it's the detail that he's done for just one little clip like that you could pause and you could have an interesting time reading through them. But like the amount of detail that he went to is insane. Sorry, Matt.
Scott Pilgrim taught us that, didn't it, Mike? I mean, because Mike's talked me through the introduction to Scott Pilgrim and just basically said,
boring person to sit and watch a film with.
No, but like I had the same.
Welcome to the boring podcast, where we talk about all things boring.
The other thing I love about Edgar Wright is, but yeah, it was like the amount of detail that he put into just that opening minute and a half or whatever, or less than Scott Pilgrim, was mind-boggling. And like you said, in that one shot of the tape, the cassette case box that he's got, it made me laugh out loud, like some things, because I'm thinking, and also there's themes there about him confronting his bullies as well, because people just basically bullying him, aren't they, for his disability and for his status or what have you. So it's kind of like confront your bullies, take their insults, make them into something, So there's just, again, there's a simple theme, but there is that going on there as well for the younger audience.
It's because there's lots of things in regards to this, because I liked how when he puts it in there, obviously there's a gold tape with Mom written on it, and what's also cool is, as much as we say it confronts his bullies, and it also is referenced that absolutely everything he's done pretty much for his entire getaway driver's life, she's at the centre of it.
Yeah.
And that's a big theme as well. Your mum is at the centre of it, and that's a big theme for him.
And he doesn't pull it out and go, "Oh," and look at it. It's just there in the frame. It's right in the centre, and you can see it. But it doesn't. He doesn't do that thing of like where Baby gets it out and sort of looks at it. It's just there, and your mind does the rest.
He's almost afraid to confront it, and it's as a character that is extremely simple on the surface, is an extremely complicated character, and credit where credit's due. To the right, like again, we will absolutely suck off Edgar Wright for this entire podcast, but he is like it's. I also like these little niches as well. If you take some of the main characters, they've all got names where you can pretty much attribute them to just a high name, like Baby. There's Darling, there's Buddy, there's Joe, and these are names that you give to people. Is that just instead of calling their real name, you'll give them a baby, like a baby name.
Yeah, it's like archetypes as well, isn't it? Like archetypal characters.
I love it how, because Darling's real name is Monica, and they say, well, all our names are Monicas, so what's your real name? It's Monica.
That's a great line.
It's a great line, great detail. And I absolutely, that's what makes, again, we'll say it again and again and again through his podcast, but that's what makes this film, and all his catalogue really, completely rewatchable.
Yeah. I just jumping on what you said, Matt, I think that it's the overall theme of turning a disability into your greatest asset is a fantastic through line all the way through this. The fact that, like you said, Sam, that Baby is mocked and bullied all the way through this for just like sitting in the corner. I always feel bad every time that the Punisher or Bats goes up to him and just says, why are you just sitting there? It's like, he's doing nothing. Why are you having a go at him? Anyway, but the fact is that, he's turning the tinnitus sound and he's turning his love of music into what separates him from the rest, and why Doc loves him so much and wants him as part of the team is because he's turned it into that. And I just think it raises a great discussion on ableism and like the mocking of disabilities when they could be such a great asset to your team if you actually just embrace them and work alongside them instead.
So much so you can't work without them.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you push, and the other thing is like when you push when you push people as such too far, they will be unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any link between this and Drive as well? I was kind of thinking yesterday that maybe Edgar Wright saw Drive and thought, this is dull and uninteresting. I could make a better version of that. Or, because I love Drive. Sorry, I just want to say I love Drive. I just think that, a lot of people will criticise Drive for being
not a driving film.
Well, yeah, and all surface, no depth, which I disagree with, but, some people, that's what a lot of people think.
I think when it comes to things like that, it's like people look at Baby Driver, they'll see some of the actors in it and they'll think this is probably an action film. It says Drive in the name, and people think, oh, is it like a weird getaway rip-off of maybe a small Fast and the Furious versus something else, like crime film? And it's really not that at all. It's about the journey of one boy, essentially, and trying to better his life, but we kind of meet Baby halfway through his journey towards his end, and it's open-ended, but I think it's still I will go back and watch this film a million times and always find something new about it, and I will grow to know Baby as a character. And Edgar Wright, I think he really does want to do that for all his films. So much so that when it comes to my other passion, I think we mentioned that I've been Twitch streaming. I'm a massive video games fan. When it comes to things such as directing films like this, I always look back at I always try and analyze it beside something else as a journey. And there is a particular video game, I know we're a film podcast and everything like that, but there's a particular video game of a director known as Hideo Kojima. I don't know if you guys know who Hideo Kojima is.
I'm playing Death Stranding.
Yeah, we've got nods. yeah.
Metal Gear Solid, right?
Beautiful. So you might know this factoid then.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so Death Stranding, Hideo Kojima's first solo work, it is a journey work, and it's very... I won't get into the details. It's too big of a game to get into details of, but Edgar Wright's in it.
Yes, as Thomas
Really?
Sutherland.
Oh, we did know it. There we go. So we played this up as you won't know this, but he is in it.
I tweeted Edgar Wright saying, Edgar Wright, you're disappointed in my delivery skills, and he liked it and replied back to it.
He is in it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's in it. It's not him.
No way.
It's the likeness of him. He's not the voice actor. Yeah. But he is in it. Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was like, what? Because as I will probably hold up Edgar Wright and Hideo Kojima as two of the greatest writers and directors I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing.
Yeah.
Purely because they're both visionaries, and I liked the fact that they both kind of met in this amazing experience of a video game.
What was the connection? Like, how did he become? Do they know each other? Like, what was the involvement?
I don't know. I never actually looked into it.
Do you think?
I didn't look into it. I just in my mind, I just made up the fact that these are two great people and great visionaries.
I think I heard the fact that because Guillermo del Toro is also gives his likeness to the game, as well as like Nicholas Winding Refn, speaking of Drive before. But I think I heard that Edgar Wright became friends with Guillermo, and then Guillermo was working with Hideo on Silent Hills before that unfortunately went into the ground. But we got Death Stranding instead, so that's just as good for me. But I think it was through Del Toro that the connection was pretty much made, and then they're a big fan of like Japanese cinema and American cinema, so they've been like swapping and comparing and contrasting film lists, and even in the game you're able to like uncover films of like the past, and like you find stuff like The Seven Samurai or some of Nicholas Winding Refn's own work in Death Stranding in a bit of a self-congratulatory thing, but still it was very interesting to find out. But I think that was the connection anyway. I just
wish this film got the credit it deserved at the box office. I think it's Edgar Wright's most successful financial film, isn't it?
At the box office. Be surprised because of the cast, especially, and like and the sort of accolades that it got. I would before that have assumed, would it have been Sean before that, or because I doubt Scott Pilgrim would have been a great success.
I think it was more at the box office. I think it was more.
Scott Pilgrim was virtually a bomb. I think it's become like a cult classic because of that, because it didn't make...
Just about break even.
Well, yeah, unfortunately. I think it's one of the worst.
It was also too long. It was a long film.
Oh, I want more of it. I love Scott Pilgrim. Like Baby Driver's in your
favourite movie.
3. Scott Pilgrim's in my top 5. I absolutely adore it and try and champion it as much as I can.
People who listen to this, I applaud them to go, if they haven't already watched it, go watch it, and go watch it again, and go watch it again, and then just enjoy it and get to know it, because it matures like a proper, like one of them. I don't like wine, but they say it matures like a fine wine, and it really does, and it gets better and better and better. And at the day when you don't want, and you start watching it and you think, I don't want to watch this anymore, Edgar Wright will have another masterpiece out, and you'll be able to move on to that and see elements of that in it. You'll see that.
It's going to date so well as well, this movie. It's going to date really well, because the themes are so universal that it's talking about. And there's not really an attention paid to specific cars or, people will see them, but, it doesn't zoom in on the Ferrari sign or the Ford or whatever the fucking, it's not about that.
It's not a commercial.
It's
no.
It's not a commercial, no. The cars are glamorous and fast and shiny, but it's not actually about that.
And all real stunts.
Drive wasn't.
No CGI. All real stunts.
Oh,
like
amazing!
Oh my lord! The production value in this film, as much as it's like not exactly a high budget film, the production value is amazing because it's so realistic. I wish it was held up as much as a trophy for Edgar Wright, as much as Shaun the Dead is in this country.
So I think that's all from Sam, Matt and myself today. So Sam did mention this before, but I'm just going to reiterate it. If people are listening to this and this is your first Edgar Wright film, please seek out his others. The Cornetto trilogy of Shaun the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, Scott Pilgrim, and even Space, the TV show. You owe it to yourselves to do it. He is one of the best directors that we have coming out of this country right now, and everything that is great about this film is in all of his other works as well. You will have a great time regardless of which film or TV show you choose. But Sam, like we said before, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to plug your pluggables?
I love my video games, I love my writing, so I'm streaming 3 times a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/Parkie34, Thursdays, Saturdays and Mondays.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think they're my days. They do fluctuate, but you follow me on Twitter as well.
Amazing.
And it's, I do 1 day a week where I do 1 story game, and I will be like this in this podcast. I will do nothing but talk about character development and about story. And
very analytical.
Again, it's like when we talk about this film, I'm so passionate about it because it is so, you can come back to it as many times as you want, just like a video game, just like anything else. It's so deep. And I will do that every Thursday on Twitch. So Amazing. You're more than welcome to come and join the conversation with me as well.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure to talk shop and film nerd with you guys.
Well,
it really,
welcome back
really
anytime.
is sweet.
Yeah. If you'd like to hear more from us, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to like this video, as it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter by searching for the name Matt and Mike Pull Focus. Say goodbye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
Say goodbye, Sam.
Goodbye, Sam.
And that's goodbye from me as well.
Yes.
Goodbye.